Not one of them has ever even taken the time to mount a good argument by using some facts and trying to establish that what I'm saying is so crazy and that I'm a crazy person, as they say. If I was so crazy, they could just take that information and they could prove me wrong very simply. But they don't. They choose to throw mud and ad hominem left and right. So that's fine. It just shows that I'm hurting them, I'm causing them to react, and that's why I do what I do. I got tired of these individuals lying to us, lying to me. When I was in the military, I signed that paper that said that I would follow my superior's orders, and that included to put myself in harm's way or to take the life of another human being. And I take that oath very seriously, as should anyone who's involved in the military. So come to find out that my government or these law enforcement agencies are taking part in a lie, and the individuals that are our elected officials are not who they say they are. And again, we're talking about actors playing these roles again as certain elected officials. I got upset about that. I got very upset, and I took it upon myself to make sure that when I see this fraud, I believe it's fraud, but it's of course not when you look at it from the legal perspective, but it's morally reprehensible. So it's my duty, it's my belief that I need to expose these individuals, and that's doing the right thing. It's difficult for me. I get attacked all the time, as most of you are well aware, but it's worth it to me. I find that it's necessary. So they can attack all they want. They can do what they want, and they will. And people say, well, why aren't you dead yet? Why don't they kill you off? Well, again, that's something that happens in the movies. These scenarios of people disappearing or them killing people, that's something that the movies, Hollywood has created in order to get you to be conditioned to believe that that's reality. Now, you think, well, of course they could kill you. They could just take you out. But no, they just don't do that. That doesn't happen in reality. What they do is they do assassinate your character. They will go after you if you have any blemishes on your history when it comes to being arrested. They will exploit those things, and at every opportunity that you give them, they will take it, and they will cause you problems. They will not go out and just kill somebody. It's just the thought of that is ludicrous, because that's putting this whole operation that they've been working at risk. What if it goes wrong? What if they get caught? See, these are things that in reality could happen. So they would rather not risk things like that, and they basically just go after you and destroy you online. Or what they've tried to do with me is they've published things about me in the New York Times that are lies, but they quickly found out that I have very thick skin, and it didn't really bother me at all. And in fact, it got more publicity because of their lies. And that, in turn, I called the author of that article and told him, hey, anytime you want, post anything you want about me, because it totally backfired on them. So most people, though, would say, I quit when they see their name in the New York Times and lies about them. But for me, I wear it as a badge of honor. And I'll continue to do what I do regardless until I can't do it anymore. So when I mentioned the arrest that I had, and I've been arrested several times, but each time I've been found innocent. The last couple times, they were trying to instigate or trying to get me to slip up, and they basically made up some charges, said it was a 7-year-old charge, and put a warrant out on me. I didn't know about it, and of course was arrested, but as soon as my lawyer got into court, asked what was going on here, they said it was a clerical error, and they let me out. So at that point, I talked to my lawyer and said, when are we going to go after the city? When are we going to sue for malicious prosecution? And I learned some things about the law and the DA and are sheriffs and other law enforcement officials that kind of upset me a little bit and further fueled my mission of exposing these people. And that was that these elected officials are protected, especially the DA, from being sued. Now, can they be sued? Yes. But it takes, and this is what I'm relaying to you from my lawyer, he said it takes a outrageous, just a total, complete ignorance of the law to just attack somebody, and that would get them sued. But for what he did to me was basically, it wasn't something that overstepped the legal boundaries, even though it was kind of suspicious, and the situation that was surrounding that event was definitely questionable, but it wasn't enough to cause them to be able to be sued. But in their defense, what they tried to do, it backfired again, and they caused the DA to quit his position. He had a 100% conviction rate up until my case. I was the first one that he lost, and he lost big time. So he quit his position. And of course, they will tell you that it was for other reasons, but it just coincides with the timing of my event, my Supreme Court victory. So, you know, think what you want, believe what you want. So they brought in a new DA, and that new DA I looked at and I recognized her. We'll get into that one later on, but of course, as soon as I outed her, she disappeared for a month. And of course, like I said with Megyn Kelly, I believe that they get retrained in order to handle the accusations that are being made or leveled against them. And of course, she came back and basically said that she needed some time for her emotional situation. So again, believe what you want. But we are having an effect on these individuals. We are causing them to have to rethink and be more careful with their acts. And they are very quiet recently. And it's kind of concerning that they've been so quiet. I don't know what they have planned. I haven't heard anything from the inside, but it's been way, way too long, and they've been way too quiet. So expect something big soon to happen. And I'm not talking about just the Trump and Russia rumors or things like that, because those are just stories that are B stories, not any A stories. So be on alert and be ready. Now, if we have any callers, we can take some calls, ask about anything you want, some of the work that I've done in the past, or current issues, things that I've, of course, investigated. But back to Megyn Kelly. I've said that once we outed her, the goal was to not let her get away with what she's done. And people complain about, what am I doing that's positive to fix these situations? And I think that just by exposing these individuals to the story, showing you their face, showing you their connection, their family members, their siblings, their spouse, and how they're playing roles in these events, it is a small hit on their monster of a machine that's taking advantage of our trust. But it's that hit that individual, that actor, now has to deal with. It makes it more and more difficult for them to change their appearance and to take part in this scam again. Now, they do wait it out. And of course, the science behind that is around every 5 to 7 years is the average time that a person remembers a face. So they'll cycle these individuals in and out of the media, depending upon how large that story grew. But somebody like this, they're having a hard time dealing with this information. And I would probably dare say that she'll probably quit and fade away, or wait another 5, 7 years, and then you'll see her back, changed her appearance, and we'll be back playing something else. Because these individuals are actors. They do have to make a living. But they do not own the characters that they're playing, so they can't be those faces anymore. They have to make new characters. They have to play new roles. And for some of them, that's very difficult. It's a limit that their acting ability basically sets in place. Some of them are very good. Some of them I know have played multiple roles and have played them right in front of me, and I haven't caught them until maybe 6 months after the event, and then I'll catch it. And then I'm shocked, of course, by how skilled they actually are. Because trust me, these individuals, just because they get favorites and they're allowed to get first rights of refusal to these events, that means that when they get that event, they have to bring their A game. They have to be good at what they do, or they just aren't going to make it. So favoritism or not, the public has to accept and believe that character is real, and they have to be very skilled at what they do. Now, the military aspect of this situation is something that has been growing more and more, looming over top of me when it comes to the control or who's behind these events. The military-industrial complex that, of course, we all know and love, the creators of the war machines, the Raytheons, the Boeings, whatnot, it is a huge profit for them to have conflict. These corporations are so large and so powerful when it comes to Congress that we'll talk about what they can do and what they can't do when we return from this break. All right, we're back. So we have a couple of good questions on the chat line. Also, we have a call-in. We'll get to Pam in a moment. The work that I've done in the past, if you're familiar with it, if you're new to it especially, you're going to have a couple different types of reactions when you see the work. First, if you're very conditioned, which most of us are, all of us have been conditioned our entire life by watching the TV and what we've been fed to us by, of course, the media and textbooks and history and our parents and everybody around us who have learned from the same places that our parents have and generation after generation. You have a variation of complete denial that it's real and basically ridicule it. Some people will look at it and be open-minded to it and then start to evaluate it, look at the facts that I'm giving, and they'll start to accept it. But either way, they're eventually going to hit a place in their life where once they see the truth, the reaction that it causes in people is a very physical, painful reaction. It's almost like a rebirth, that you're now shedding the condition, the blinders that you've had your whole life, and you're starting to see this massive, huge lie that has been basically everything that we think is real around us. And what I mean by that is not, of course, physically real or not, like we're in a dream state, which we sort of are, but everything that we have taken in per history, per pop culture, per the stars and celebrities that we see and we admire and emulate, you'll find out that it's all been scripted. It's all been planned out. These individuals are put there. They are made into celebrities. These events are staged. They're scripted out in order to push an agenda or whatever the profit scheme is per that governing official behind that event. So you have to accept this fact that you've been conned. And it's very difficult for some people. It was difficult for me to accept it, but I'm the type of person where I'm not quick to jump on any bandwagons. I have to see the facts. I have to be able to evaluate the facts. And when I say facts, I'm not talking about just somebody telling you something. Hearsay is not acceptable. When I saw the lie being dismantled in front of me, I knew that I had to tell people about it. And I had to do it in a way that I had to present facts to people. I couldn't just say, hey, this person is that person, go look at them and just believe me. That's not going to work. So I had to figure out what could be a way to scientifically measure this observation that I was having. And that's what I turned to the biometrics. It's very difficult to argue when you see that this person is that person, and we can confirm it with the hand veins, the ears, the teeth, the face, the other aspects of them. But then when you add on top of that their spouse, and what I mean by that is standing right next to them in this story is a person that, when I say it's an actor and you look at that actor's spouse, that person is a match to the story's spouse. And then you see that their siblings are there, and their children are there, or their parents. Eventually you get to the point where it's not a coincidence. It can't be a coincidence. There is no logical way for it to be a coincidence. So then you have people attacking me saying that they're clones or there's some whatever craziness going on. But I argue with that and say, look, it's always across the board. It's always much simpler than what you think it is. It's so simple, in fact, that you have to admire how they've been able to do this for so long. And I say that, and it's sort of difficult for me to say, but you have to really understand how long this has been going on and how massive on the scale of this. And you have to appreciate the fact that they've been able to do this and be very successful at it. And not too many people have caught on. So you asked then, how did I manage to find out this massive secret? Well, the one thing that is a gift that I've had, and I have a photographic memory for faces and objects. That gift I never thought would ever come into be used for anything. As a child, I remember seeing people on commercials saying, that's that same actor as this person. And my grandfather would sit there with me and say, no, it's not. No, it's not. I'm like, yes, it is. I know it is. And I could see that these individuals were playing multiple roles. And I thought to myself, why do I have this gift? Why can't I have a gift for spelling or a gift for math and whatnot? Something that I could use in school. But no, I have to have this gift of facial recognition. So
and you're an artist.
Yes. Well, I think everybody's an artist, and we don't know. People just don't know how to draw. But I think I can teach anyone how to draw. So that type of gift is something that I personally have, but it's not something that I could have used and done all this without certain things being in place. And those certain things are the internet. Without the internet and the ability to get all this data, I would have had to have gone to archives and physically been there and pulled photographs, and there would be no physical way to do this. So there was a convergence of a lot of things that gave me this opportunity. And once I saw that all these things came together and I could see the patterns over and over, and then take that pattern and apply it to the next event, and to the next event, and to the next event in history, and go through textbooks, you could see the same pattern over and over and over again. And at that point, that's when I knew that something was up, and this was a real event. So was that Pam?
And then he came across the Facebook pages that had the photograph album of them all, and he went through all of it. And that was really, was just like the topper of, so the whole floodgates going off.
Yes, that was a big thing. And the person that you're talking about is David Weiss. Dave Weiss played a role in the Gabrielle Giffords event as one of the doctors, as Dr. La Mole, of course. The Mole, being inside the mole. They love playing the name games, of course. So when I saw him and I was able to connect him to his Facebook page, Dave Weiss, I saw that there was a family connection to the individuals that were involved in that situation. But then I looked at his friends list, and on his friends list, he had about 240 people. At that same time, there was the SEAL Team 7, the helicopter was shot down, SEAL Team 6, sorry, and the helicopter that was shot down, and these guys were the ones that killed Bin Laden and all that stuff, but didn't have the body, whatnot. So I saw that, and I remember their faces from over and over and over again, them showing these tributes to them on the news, and I looked at Dave's friends list, and here they all are. All of them, not just one, not just two, all of them, and they're all friends. So at that point, I was like, wow, wait a second, something's going on here. And I managed to identify, at least 90 of the individuals involved in that list to current events that were unrelated to each other, but they're all on Dave's list. And at that point, I got a telephone call. And that telephone call was from one of the individuals that was on that SEAL team. And basically what they told me, and I'm not going to say their name because they have family and they were very afraid to say this, but basically they told me that Dave was the casting director for these events. And
no kidding.
Yeah, so I confronted Dave, sent him a message, and next thing you know, Dave starts threatening me, saying that he's going to have me arrested or if I don't get his photographs down and whatnot. But it just, long story short, he then shut down his account and disappeared. So at that point I knew, and I had, of course, every time I ever do research online, I always take screenshots, always download the pages, because immediately if you hit a nerve with them, they're going to pull it. They're going to yank their information down. So I made sure I archived everything, and I went through his list and found so many people that were involved in this. Some of them worked for CBS, which is another company that I expose in my latest documentary. And CBS, if you don't know, that's Desilu Productions. That's Lucy. And basically, the Virginia Tech shooting, the shooter was in there, and also some of the eyewitnesses were in his Facebook friends list. So it just went on and on. And then with the Gabrielle Giffords event, the individual that filed, I believe it was his, on the hospital directory, Dr. Lamole, you can pull up his paperwork. And when I did that as a PDF, you could download from the hospital. And when I downloaded it, you could view the properties of that PDF. And this is something that people at that time didn't really know about, but PDF would take the personal information of the machine that created that document from, the time and the account name that created it, and it would encapsulate it in the PDF. Now, you can remove all that personal information if you wanted to, but most people don't even know about it, so they just left it there. And it was that document was created the day before. Well, it was actually created the day after the shooting and posted to the hospital. So we also had the name of the person that created it, and we could track her back. So they screwed up twice with that one, and that was a big, big discovery for me. And
oh, yes. Can I ask you a question at this point?
Sure.
So recently, I heard Gabrielle Giffords' name being tossed around in the news as receiving, okay, now is this fake news? It was on Fox News, right? They're saying Gabrielle Gifford, and they're going on and on about this. And I'm like, wow, why is she even being called out on the news? Okay, so is this the fake news? Or why hasn't people caught on? Or why she doesn't have any congressional records? Is that right? Is that how there's no official congressional records for Gabrielle Gifford?
When I first, I was on the Joyce Riley, the Power Hour show as a regular contributor for that Gabrielle Giffords event. I did the investigations for it and traveled out to Arizona and did, feet on the ground and investigated it. And one of the things I first caught my eye was the news broadcasts and the eyewitnesses. First of all, the news broadcasters didn't know how to pronounce her name. Didn't know if it was a male or female or not. They said a Congressman Giffords or a Congresswoman. They were very strange about it. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a second. Okay, if this person's a congressman or a congresswoman, you're going to have some understanding of who they are, but nobody knew who she was. So I went, okay, let me go to the National Archives and let me go to the Thomas Registry, and let's pull up some of the things that she's done in Congress. And when I got there, I found nothing except for one mention of her name, and it was another senator had mentioned the shooting. That was it.
Right.
She had no records. She was involved in no bills, no voting, nothing. And she had been there a year. So I went, wait a second. Something's wrong with this. Something's got to be wrong. So I started to search for other senators and other reps. And I went through the list, and I found 5 other ones that had no records. And
Is that right?
two of them were adjacent to Giffords' area right there in Arizona. So at that point, one was in LA, and where basically Hollywood is. So I went, wait a second, there's something here. And
okay, so wait, so when Fox News was saying Gabrielle Gifford is getting this, she's being honored for that in as a congressperson. Now, does it take the public person like you to indict the felonious information that they're presenting, the fraud to I don't know, how do you indict these people?
I would say, this is my opinion, I'm not a lawyer, but from what I've learned from my lawyer and from other lawyers, that candidate oath form, the document that I spoke about last week and that I've done a bunch of work on my website,
right.
that document that basically says that they're being vouched for by somebody else, so therefore they don't have to show any ID, but that document right there is their loophole that allows them to act as another person, and therefore you can't hold them accountable. You can't go after, like, my best example that I've used is Jesse Ventura.
Now, how come we don't all just do that?
Okay. Well, that's the thing. We're allowed to, but we just aren't told that. You can use a fake name, a fictitious name, but you just can't use it when it comes to filing a federal document. But you can if somebody else is filing that federal document, of course, with the candidate oath form, So you're not lying, but the other person is saying, yeah, they are that person. So they're getting there. It's a very gray area, and that's the loophole that if we can close that loophole, that would cause a massive disruption in their whole event. Because, like I tell people, the things that are real in this world are courts, jail, and IRS. So don't want to mess with any of those. And
Secretary Kelly is going to close all those loopholes when he gets around to these very last things. They're redoing all the immigration. He's there. Yeah, Secretary Kelly of Department of Homeland Security. He just received a new position now. He's also chief of staff.
Yeah. And I tell people, they're like, well, Trump's going to do all this when he gets in office, or this person's going to do all that, this elected official or that elected official. I'm like, look, as long as they are using a fake name, a fictitious name, they're not going to do anything that's going to be different, because they can't. That office that they're holding is a corporation.
Right,
by corporate law, they have to choose the most profitable scenarios that come their way, and that means that if it's profit above people, then that's profit above people. They're not going to do anything that's going to compromise that position or that profit. So they may tell you whatever they want to get elected, but when it comes down to it, they have basically get handed that corporate handbook and say, here's your rules, and they can and can't do the same thing that the person before can and can't do. So don't expect any change, because change means they have to do something, they have to work, and things can go wrong. So the corporate media, the establishment, the way it is, they want to keep everything the same. But with that in mind, remember that there's corporations that their entire existence is to convince you that the world's going to end tomorrow, and they want you to react.
Okay, let me get you a question here from the chat room. Jerry Bear is asking, please ask Ed about all the astronauts that died in the shuttle accident explosion, the one with Krista McCullough. Was that also a hoax? Do you know about that one? Have you done any work on that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And, there's a lot of videos online, and I don't endorse other people's work because I don't know who they are, and unless they put their face on it, and then I can validate if they're not, involved in it. But the things that I've seen online, I think they go a little bit too far with what they're saying. But the work that I've done is, and this is really amazing, if you look at both of the shuttle events, look at the crews for both the disasters. They're almost the same exact crews, except for, I believe, two of the individuals, or one of the individuals is different. They're the same people, just 17 years apart.
That's so funny.
That in itself should just go, wait a second. Oh, wait a second. So did they blow the shuttles up? Oh yeah. I'm sure they did.
Okay, so so I know a lot of your information. I have studied it. I have watched you grow and find out more on this trek that we've been on. But most of the time, so I have a show here called News to Me, and I just do the public law and evidencing and things, and a lot of our rights are inherent rights, anyways. But so what I usually say when I talk about you, I'm like, well, I go to the end line, I go to the punch line, and I lose everybody. I usually talk about the Queen of England, Lucille Ball, and then I pull them off the top of my head, like. And I can't remember these actors' name because I've never watched any movies, but it's Tom Cruise's wife. The ex-wife is the Kate Middleton, and I can see all of these. I have to really be looking at notes to do a lot of, to be able to, or how about Senator John McCain, who's also the Fonz and
he's
Alice Cooper?
He's not Fonz. No, he's not the Fonz. But he is remember I'm trying to think of his name on MASH. One of the what was his name? I'm trying to think. He's actually one of the actors from MASH. And if you go to the website, I've made that announcement that 1 out of 6,000 that I've done I've been wrong about. So I don't mind that one.
And that's one of the ones I remember. That's so funny.
Yeah, but the Fonz has been involved in other things, and he was actually given an award, the highest award that an American can get from the royal family. And he's an actor that, of course, graduated from Yale, so he has very big ties to that. And he's definitely.
Now, what about Alice Cooper?
Alice Cooper is a person that is involved in the Kaplan family that I've investigated. And if you know the background, there's the Greenberg family, Kaplans, Harmons. These are the names of the individuals that are involved in, I would say, the Disney side of it. And he and Warner Brothers, that's the big one there. He is one of the Kaplan, and I have photographs of him, of course, in his normal attire. And there's been many of articles that he's done, and his voice that he admits that Alice Cooper is a creation. It's a character that he does. So
Celine Dion's husband, who just passed away recently. Who was that?
That's a good one. That
was awesome.
Yeah, when I release this information, I watch for the reaction, and this one was a immediate, total, just like, oh, they ran for the hills on that one. When I released the fact that Celine Dion, if you look at Elvis's last girlfriend, and that's Linda Thompson. Linda Thompson is her mother. You put them side by side, and you're like, oh my God, that's Celine Dion. That's her mother. So at that point,
slow so they can follow this. This is really good.
It's a good. So when I announced that, I also looked into, of course, Elvis being Celine's husband, Renee. And when you look at their kids, of course, they're not having any kids together, but it's just that's her father. Renee is her father. Her kids, whoever the father is, if you look at them, they look exactly like Elvis did when he was little. So that's the funny point. But the fact that Linda Thompson is her mother and Renee is her father, then I started to do the ear analysis on Renee and Elvis. Then we did the veins on the hands because, of course, he played guitar, which is very easy to do. Now, Renee is a singer. He was known as a singer. He also has a twin brother. Now, if you remember the conspiracy about Elvis and having on the tombstone, the Aaron is spelled differently from what there's this whole talk about him having a twin. And this is true, but he didn't die. Now, when I announced that, and I'll go into that in a minute, but when I announced the fact that Renee was Elvis and Linda's Celine's mother, immediately, like the next day, Celine quit her Las Vegas contract.
Oh, really?
Quit it. And then within 3 days after that, they started to liquidate Graceland. They sold everything. It's plain. It was all in the news. They were liquidating everything. And that right there is telling you that they were afraid, big time afraid, because, there's a lot of fraud going around when it comes to that. And when I say fraud, there's real fraud, as in here's a Elvis signed guitar and, he's still alive. But, there's a lot of problems with that. So they got afraid. So then within a month of that happening, then he gets sick. And when he dies, not only did he die, but his doctor died and Celine's brother died. Okay, on the same day. They all three died. So I went, wait a second. Here we go. This is the story. This is what they used. They show you photographs of Elvis, and I say that's Renee. Well, they say, well, here's Renee overseas singing at the same time. No, that's Renee's twin. But the twin they never talk about. So they basically said that Celine's brother is his twin, right? So he's not her brother. That's of course his twin. That's her uncle. But he had to die at the same time. And that story was that was an interesting one because they could use that as their escape. They say, well, Elvis can't be Renee because here's Renee overseas. But again, that was his brother they were showing you photographs of. It was a really well done, really amazing script that they wrote for that one. And you got Colonel Tom Parker to thank for that one, which I'm releasing soon, that Colonel Tom Parker was one of the Joint Chiefs of Staff